I can see nobody, which is good news for everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Gosh, where did I get this crowd? Anyway, so we've come here today to talk about some things that you might not have known about teams that might one day be interesting. And my name is Tony Redmond. I've been around for quite a while in this community. Been an MVP since 2004, seems ever such a long time ago. And I write about Office 365 for Petri.com. I know some of you read it because you've told me on the way in, so thank you very much. We also have this project, this ongoing project called the Office 365 for IT Pros book. And a lot of what you're going to hear today came from the development process we use for that book, because we publish it every month to keep up to date with what's going on in the world of Office 365. And as we're looking through stuff, we found all sorts of little interesting nuggets that I thought that we could combine together into this presentation. So, to start off, oh, by the way, the rules of the game. The rules of the game, very important. I'll try and amuse you. I'll try and humor you. And I'll try and inform. If you're going to tweet about this, can we have some interesting tweets? Okay? Witty tweets. Okay? Don't say anything about my body shape or anything like that. That's bad. Just stuff that we cover. Anyway, so Teams is a very fast evolving application. You may have noticed that. In fact, recently, of course, there was a change where Teams embraced the Microsoft lifecycle policy, which means that you better have an up-to-date client to connect to the Teams service. And because it changes so often, I mean, I don't know, have you ever looked at the Message Center in the Office 365 Admin Center and figured out just how many of those changes that are described there are for Teams? So it's a bit of a challenge to keep up to date. And again, that's what we're going to try and do here today, is put out some of those things, those little details, and see what we can talk about them. So, we'll start off. Question. Why should you avoid the general channel? Of course, I can't see anybody, so I don't know if you're responding. All right, well, let me respond. Basically, every team has a general channel. The general channel is, in fact, the team. That's it, the general channel. If you don't have anything but the general channel, you have a team, and that's what it is. But it's best to keep day-to-day conversations out of the general channel, because all sorts of other things get posted there by system processes, and you don't really want to have them intermingled into the general channel. You can create lots of channels, up to 200 of them in a team. I'm not necessarily saying that that's a good idea. In fact, I think it's a very bad idea. I think once you give users too much choice, you confuse them. But the point is that you can create as many channels as you want up to that 200 limit. You can't get rid of the general channel. You can't rename the general channel. It's there. It's the team. Okay? But you can block people from posting in it, and that's what I think you should do. So that's the first little thing, and that's it. That was an easy one. What about Teams etiquette? Does such a thing exist? It should exist. It should exist because it's nice to be polite, and etiquette is all about being polite. It's also all about trying to help people navigate through Teams. So it does exist, and it's documented. People have talked about it. It's just guidelines for how to do things. And the most basic example that I can give you, and if there's one thing you can do when you go away from this session, is please, please, every new topic you start off in a channel, give it a subject. It makes it much easier to navigate through the channel and find information. People will appreciate it. But I think, you know, everybody uses Teams in a different way. Organizations use Teams in a different way. So this is going to be an intensely individual thing for your organization. It's actually worth it as part of user education to sit down with people and give them hints and tips for using Teams, rather than just making an assumption, hey, it's only software. We've been down that route before and didn't work out so well. So help your users by telling them how to use Teams well. My bonus etiquette question is personal chats. Is it okay to send it outside normal working hours? That's a really difficult ethical question, because what is normal working hours? What are normal working hours these days, especially in a multinational company, especially in a company that spans multiple time zones? You never quite know. But that's the kind of hint and tip that you could give to people. Okay, question. When should I use group chats versus channel conversations? And the answer really is that, well, group chats are pretty powerful. They got a lot more powerful recently. You now have up to 100 participants in a group chat, and they're a great place to go and refine ideas before you bring it back to a general channel for posting, or another channel for posting. And the reason why I think this is so good, and it's a valuable thing to do, is because it allows a very focused group of individuals who actually know something about a subject to get together, figure things out, debate the issues, and come to a conclusion. Because one of the issues I think that we often run into in a team that may have a membership of several hundreds, if you go and post an idea there into a channel and say, hey, what do you think of this? You may get a whole pile of opinions voiced, but how many of those opinions are knowledgeable? How many of them are useful? How many of them are half-baked? How many of them are just put out there because people want to contribute? So I think it's a much more productive use of Teams if you use group chats to take ideas to one side, figure them out, and then when you're ready, boom, publish them. It's a very effective way of getting work done. A couple of points here. The big one is the last one. Name your group chats. Give them a name, just like I've got one here, Executive Retreat 2019. It helps people know what the chat's about. Otherwise, it's just a random chat between a group of people. Okay. What has a bot got to do with your meetings? You're all very silent. Am I talking to a group of bots? Maybe. So, a bot. Well, in fact, bots are pretty powerful, and they actually serve a pretty good purpose when you start to record a meeting. If you go and you take, I think it's the meeting record, and you have a look at it, you'll see that a thing called an application with a weird name joins after you start recording, and it leaves the meeting once you finish recording. That's a little bot. And the role of that bot is to bridge the gap between Teams and Stream, because of course Stream is where all the meeting recordings end up. Okay? And that's what's happened. In the background, you've got the bot, if you will, listening into the meeting, recording it, and then handing it over to Stream and say, here, go and finish it, do all the transcoding, make it ready for publication, and then eventually Stream will tell you that you've got a new meeting recording. Okay, that's what happens. And when Stream is ready, you'll get an email notification. All good. Well, anybody know what the difference between priority access and urgent messages? Do you even know what priority access is? Yes, there's a lone voice comes out of the darkness somewhere over here. I can't point to you, so I won't ask. Anyway, so priority access is a way of marking, for a person to mark, a user to mark, who are the important people for them. Again, it's an intensely personal thing. So if you go to Teams settings and you go to privacy, you can find that you can enter a list in there of the people that you think are ultra important to you. Okay? And the acid test is as it says there on the screen. These people are important enough to me so that they can ignore a do not disturb notice. If I've set do not disturb in Teams, and these people want to interrupt me, they can ignore that do not disturb. Okay? On the other hand, we've got these urgent messages. Now, urgent messages only exist in personal chats. They don't exist in channel conversations. And you can probably work out why. An urgent message is something to ask somebody to do something real fast. Something has happened. A machine has crashed, a service has stopped, somebody has collapsed, I need help, whatever. And an urgent message will keep on being repeated every 2 minutes until the recipient responds. Okay? So there are actually two things there. There's priority access, and that's really all about do not disturb, and urgent messages, which anybody can send when something really, really, really urgent happens. Urgent messages are also delivered during quiet hours. You know what quiet hours are? That's not in the desktop client, but it's in the mobile client. And it's the way of saying, you know what, I don't want to get notifications at the weekend, or I don't want to get notifications after 5:30 in the evening until maybe 9 in the morning. Teams has a problem spelling. This is my #1 pet hate in Teams. Teams is a part of Office. Teams is, Office has been able to spell reasonably well for a long time. You may have noticed that. But Teams has its own dictionary. And you can't teach it even. So that's the reason why. You could go and I have a dictionary that's been developed for years and years and years. And when you teach a word, it goes into your custom dictionary. Teams ignores that custom dictionary. That's what really drives me up there. So you can't teach Teams. And my suggestion, if you're going to draft something that's really, really, really important to you, and you want to make sure that you spell it correctly and it looks good, do it in Word, and then paste it into Teams. That's the way to do it. Now, can anybody tell me how many policies Teams has? 10? Nah. Higher. There's lots of them. It depends where you set the boundaries. But Teams itself, behind the scenes, it has about 14. Right? And these come from the way policies were enabled for Skype for Business Online. Skype for Business, if you look at the PowerShell module for Skype for Business Online, you'll see a whole heap of policies. And in fact, there's an MVP called Lee Ford in the UK wrote a nice piece of PowerShell which dumps down all of the settings and policies and puts them into a text file so you can check them out. But anyway, these policies exist for a very good reason. They exist to make sure that you can do granular management at a user level. You can make sure that only certain users get certain features and not others. So that's all great. However, it's quite easy to get mixed up. It's quite easy to make mistakes in these core policies. I said there are 7 of them, things like the meeting policy, the messaging policy, the app permissions policy, the app setup policy, et cetera, et cetera. So my advice to you is that if you're going to manage Teams for a big number of users, you may want to think about a little bit of PowerShell scripting, just to make sure that the right policies with the right settings are going to the right users at the right time. It's just the way to do it. The other thing I've got here is that Teams doesn't exist in a vacuum. It depends on many, many, many things in the Office 365 ecosystem. In fact, a senior development manager in the Teams group once said to me that Teams stands on the shoulders of just about every piece of Office 365. So in particular, you need to have a look at the Azure Active Directory policies that exist, things like the collaboration policy, the B2B policy, which controls whether or not guests can come into your tenant and join Teams, right? And also the B2B block policies that exist to say that, okay, I'm going to allow guests, but I'm only going to allow guests from these particular domains to come in. So the point is that there are a lot of policies there. There's a lot of policies to master, but they're intensely powerful when you do get that work done and figure things out. So all good. Now you're looking at me and thinking, I've gone totally bonkers. Why is he talking about grammar? Anybody?
Teams names.
Teams naming, yeah, well done. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, a long, long time ago, Exchange introduced the distribution list naming policy. And it was done for a reason. It was to keep all the distribution lists that you created on in an organization together in the global address list. And that's what people like to do. So you ended up with things like a policy that would prefix every distribution list with DL dash, okay, or whatever other prefix you wanted to use. And that was great. All works perfectly. But time has moved on. And the kind of approach you would take to naming for teams is very, very different. And that's because users see teams in the left rail, the navigation, and they're probably going to see a lot of teams there. And if you put a prefix in there, it's going to take space away. And they're not going to see the full name. So what I'm really saying here is that if you have a naming policy that you used for distribution lists, and you might have taken it forward to use it for Office 365 groups, where the preferred prefix was something like O365, et cetera, maybe it's time to think about it in reverse course and use a suffix instead. So you have something as I've got here, I've got in parentheses team, just to make the point, right? Now you may say, oh, okay, I'm already halfway through my development and my deployment, and I've got thousands of teams, and they've all got this prefix. What am I going to do? This is, again, where PowerShell is going to help you, because it's pretty easy to write a bit of PowerShell, which will scan down through all of your teams, extract the display name, if that's what you need to do, and just parse it out and move the prefix to become the suffix. And then happiness and light. Everybody is content, right? Has anybody ever looked at the channel email addresses that are generated? Aren't they lovely? Do you understand how they're generated? I don't either. I was just hoping there was somebody in the audience that could explain it. Anyway, yeah. Oh yes, I'll just crack out Outlook and I'll email good old 1E93C36A, a well-known friend of mine. Anyway, the way things work, it's just a unique identifier in the same way that when you create an Azure AD account, it gets a unique identifier called a GUID. In this case, it's a shortened GUID if you want to think about it like that. So what it really means is that when I enable a channel, and any member of a team can enable a channel for email, in the background, an email address is generated, something like that, with your domain, obviously, okay? And one of these phantom mailboxes are created in Exchange Online. Now, it's a phantom mailbox because no client is ever going to get into it. You're never going to see it in any admin interfaces. It just exists for one purpose, and that is to collect inbound email for the channel. When a message arrives in that mailbox, a connector captures the email and posts it into the Teams channel. And the message also ends up in SharePoint, where in the SharePoint email messages folder, if you will, for the channel. And that's what it is. It's just an email address that nobody ever should actually see. No human being should see it. I'll exclude IT administrators from that definition, of course. But you know what I mean, like regular humans don't see it. One thing I've seen people do with these email addresses is that they've used them to create guest accounts. Why would they do that? It's because when they create a guest account, they can then publish the presence of that guest account into their global address list, and that allows users a very quick and easy way to go and email the channel. They give it a user-friendly address that shows up in the GAL, something like important team email messages go here, something like that. So you could do that as well. Okay, so that's email channel messages. When is 25 kilobytes enough? Anybody? Have you all gone to sleep at the back? Are you gently dozing at the moment? Okay, well, it's the maximum size of a Teams message. Okay? If you go past 25 kilobytes, Teams will tell you that your message is too long, can't post it. Okay? So you typically run into this kind of problem if you cut and paste out a word or something like that, and you paste it into a Teams message, and then you try and post it, and then Teams comes up and says, no, 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 no. You haven't understood what I'm all about. I'm all about short, snappy, chatty messages, not your long dissertation on the way, the truth, and the light, which you tried to post into it, okay? There's 25 kilobytes, okay? And it applies to any sort of message. If a message is bigger than that, and some messages do come in that are bigger than that, through email, through that connector we just discussed, well, what you'll see is a partial part of the message, but to see the full part of it, you'll have to go and open the message that's actually captured in SharePoint. Now, here's a question. Can I back up Teams? Can I back up? If anybody here says that they can back up Teams to a PST, I will throw something at you. Okay? Believe it or not, I have been asked that. Yeah, could I take that, those 4 channels there, I'll just dump them all over here into this PST. It'll all be great. Okay? No. So the first question I'm going to ask you, why would you want to back up Teams? Is it because your auditors say it's a good idea? Is it because your CIO was chatting to some person on the plane somewhere and felt it was a good idea? That, I don't know, people have different reasons. But the point is that we have to think about what you would actually be backing up. And when we talk about Teams, there's a whole pile of different sorts of data that we've got to deal with. So the Teams messages themselves, both channel messages and chats, they're in Azure Cosmos DB. Okay? The graphics are in Azure Media, except for Giphies, which are off in the Giphy service. Then we got SharePoint Online. Then we got Planner and all that other stuff. And then you've got these compliance records, which are posted into Exchange Online mailboxes. You know the way it works. For channel conversations, once they're posted, they end up as a compliance record in the group mailbox of the group that, of the team that owns the channel. For personal messages, for personal chats, the messages end up in all the participants' mailboxes. Now, I have seen some people say, it's good enough to back up Exchange, because if I back up Exchange, I'll get all these compliance records. I'd like to take the opportunity to pour a little bit of cold water over this idea, for 2 simple reasons. Reason number 1, the compliance records are actually incomplete. Right? The compliance records are actually Teams or Exchange messages, but they miss out bits like the reactions that people have to messages. If somebody likes a message, or they use one of the new type of reactions, you know, the funny face or the whatever other reactions are available today, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm so old, I just get past like, and that's enough for me. But, you know, all of those reactions, they're not captured. So by definition, if you're backing up the compliance records, you're backing up an incomplete copy. Now, that might be enough for you. If that satisfies your auditors, and it satisfies whoever else wants backups, that's fine. But then we run into problem number 2. And problem number 2 is that there's no way to restore the messages copied from Exchange and rebuild a conversation in Teams. So I will leave you there to make your own valued decision about whether or not this is a good way of backing up Teams. I don't think it is. But in saying that, let me also say, there is a problem with Teams. And that is that there is no public documented API to stream information out of Teams in a way that a backup service would want to do it. Microsoft is working on one. There are betas of it, which are the ones that are used in some of the tenant-to-tenant migration products that are out there on the market, but it's not good enough for backup purposes. Okay, it'll come, but maybe not just now. So where do deleted teams go? Into, I don't know, dreamland? I don't know. Isn't that part of the cloud, dreamland? I thought it was. Anyway, so the point is that they go into this soft deleted state where they stay for 30 days. And during the 30-day period, you can recover them. Right? They're just there, sitting, just like a soft deleted mailbox can be recovered for 30 days. It's the same basic idea. Azure Active Directory keeps the group object in its recycle bin, and the process of restoring a deleted team is quite simply a matter of, I say quite simply, there's lots of complications, but I say quite simply because I'm trying to explain it here. But quite simply, it's a matter of resurrecting that deleted group object that's in the recycle bin and saying, you're alive again. And then some background processes start to kick in to reconnect all of the resources that belong to that group, because everything is tied to that group identity. So as soon as I restore that group, all of these resources start connecting back in: Teams, Planner, SharePoint, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. After 30 days, it's gone. Can it be recovered? Absolutely not on your Nelly. It's gone. It has become a collection of wasted bytes spread across the cloud, and they can't be reassembled. However, on the other hand, if you really want to get rid of a team quickly, and some people do, I don't know why, but some people do, you can just go and hard delete the group object out of Azure AD, and that's the way that it'll go away then. So, what's Team Chat? It's not a collection of people around a coffee having a nice natter. It is, in fact, the English language name of the hidden folder that stores Teams compliance items, those records that we talked about, backup, et cetera, et cetera. Now, why is this interesting? Why would I want to know about this? Well, a lot of people like to know when a team is actually being used. And one way of finding out whether a team is being used is to go and check the items in this folder. You can check it with a command, a PowerShell command called get mailbox statistics, folder statistics, get mailbox folder statistics. And you can go and look for the newest message that exists in that folder. And it will tell you then the date that that message was created, and so you'll know that the last time the team was active for messaging purposes. Okay, so that's all. Nice and simple. Anybody use DLP with Teams? One, it's okay, it's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's okay, I won't give out. DLP, data loss prevention, only one. Nobody else uses DLP with Teams? Oh yes, a few over there. Okay, great, okay, good. So our question is, what's going on when somebody posts a message? My collection of credit card numbers is as follows. And post it into the general channel of an org-wide team because they're open to sharing. Everybody likes to share. So I'll share all my credit cards with you. Now at that point, your DLP policy starts to get worried because it may just notice this posting. But the point is that people will see the post, and then a minute or so later, they won't see it anymore. And the question is, why does this delay happen? And the answer is, it's because of a component called the chat aggregator. DLP in any workload needs to have a choke point through which items pass for checking. So for example, in SharePoint, the choke point is the indexing facility, because as new documents are added, SharePoint is indexing, it's breaking them open, it can have a look at the content, it finds bad stuff, and it can then stop sharing. With Exchange, it's the transport system, because all messages have to pass through transport, and DLP can block things there. With Teams, it's the chat aggregator. That's a background service, you don't need to worry about it, but the point is that as messages flow through the aggregator, Teams at that point gets an opportunity to impose DLP policies. And it's once a DLP violation is detected, Teams can then say, nope, I'm taking that one back. And users will then see, instead of the content that was posted, all those very useful credit cards, they will see that the message has been blocked. That's the reason why. And sometimes, depending on the volume of work and processing that's going on in the service, things can disappear real fast. You don't have to wait around, they disappear. But in other times, when there's lots of stuff happening in the service, you will see a perceptible delay. And it could be, I've seen up to 5 or 6 minutes before something disappears. But don't worry, as long as somebody isn't taking a photograph of the screen or they're cut and pasting all those credit card numbers, no great harm will happen. And anyway, what are they going to do? They'll probably be put into an email and send it off, and then DLP will catch it anyway, so it's all good. There's no problems. Move on. Nothing to see here. Okay, retention policies. You may have noticed there was a little update the other day. Teams now supports a 1-day retention policy. So you can have all messages disappear after 1 day. Sounds good. But how does retention work? Anybody know? Magic, right? Yeah, we're in the Magic Kingdom, close to the Magic Kingdom. So some of that fairy dust comes sprinkling down across Teams and messages disappear. It's wonderful. No, but what really happens, we have the Exchange Managed Mailbox Assistant. Now, if you remember, where do compliance items get stored in Exchange? Right? Everybody with me? So, Teams, as I said earlier, is built on the shoulders of a whole pile of Office 365. And one of the nice things about Teams, I think, is that they don't try and reinvent the wheel. Exchange has a perfectly good managed folder assistant, which is perfectly capable of processing retention policies. And the managed folder assistant will make a pass through all the mailboxes, including the group mailboxes used by Teams and the personal mailboxes where personal chat records are stored. Okay? And as it passes through, it deletes them. It deletes them according to policy. So if you set a 1-day delete policy, as soon as those messages are a day old, boom, they're gone. They're gone in Exchange. The next thing that happens is that once the Exchange Managed Folder Assistant finishes, it basically sends a signal off to Teams, to the Teams chat service. And the Teams chat service removes the messages there. And that process is not instantaneous. Okay, don't expect things to just, it's not like that. Because we're running it in a cloud service at massive scale. Things sometimes take a little bit longer. So it might take a couple of hours. It might take a day. Again, it depends on the processing. But once Teams processes the deletions, we then have a further step before users are affected, and that's the synchronization between the Teams client and the Teams chat service. Teams chat service says, hello, clients. Here's some messages I want you to get rid of. And it gets rid of them, and then the users don't see them anymore. So this processing can take some time. But that's what happens. That's how Teams removes items after the retention policies expire. Because you're using the Exchange Managed Folder Assistant, this means that you can query the Exchange Managed Folder Assistant to find out whether or not items are being removed. So if you ever have a doubt that a retention policy is working, you can go and I'm afraid just another piece of PowerShell. It's export mail diagnostic logs, mailbox diagnostic logs. and it will tell you the last time MFA ran against a mailbox and what it did. Speaking about PowerShell, does Teams support it? Absolutely, absolutely. There's two modules. This is a thing that you just have to get your mind around. On the one hand, you have the new Teams module, which is built around the graph. Okay? Behind all of the commandlets is the graph. And on the other hand, you have the Skype for Business Online commandlets, and they basically do all that policy processing that we talked about earlier on. The Teams module is pretty slow at this point in time. They're trying to speed it up. It's slow. And it's there to manage Teams, the channels, the membership, and so forth and so on. But remember that they're in Office 365, because there are so many things that link together, there's probably another way of doing it without going near the Teams module. For example, you can manage membership with Azure AD, because again, behind Teams, you have an Azure AD group, and the membership of that group is what Teams uses as its membership. There's nothing to stop you using those commandlets, and they're faster. You can use Exchange, because the group is an Office 365 group, and the Office 365 group commandlets are in the Exchange module, and so forth and so on. So when I say yes, Teams supports PowerShell, and there are two modules, in fact, in a practical sense, you will probably end up using 3, 4, or 5 different modules to automate processes fully with PowerShell. But it's all good. Why can't I blur myself? I want to blur myself all the time. I'm not very attractive on meetings, especially in the morning, I tell you. Don't know about you, but I don't get out of bed looking sunny. Anyway, the reason is, do you like that? That's one of the new features that's coming, which is where you can customize your background. And you can take any photo you have, right? And you can upload it to Teams, and you say, in a meeting, use this as my background. So there's no boring office behind me, no boring anything, right? Now, and before we all get too excited, as you can see, I was very excited because there's a bee flying into my ear here. And that's enough to excite anybody, believe you me. Anyway, being serious for a moment. When this feature rolls out, and it's quite close, they announced it here at Ignite. When this feature rolls out, I think this is going to be a place where you need to give people guidance as to the appropriate level of the images that they post. No public nudity, please, for example. That would be bad, okay? And we don't want to have a competition in a meeting where everybody's looking at each other's photographs or backgrounds and say, wow, where were you on vacation? You know, that would be bad. Anyway, so the reason why, coming back to the point, the reason why you might not be able to blur stuff is because you don't have a workstation with the right chipset. Because what's really happening here is that Teams is trying to do the kind of green screen trick, where it uses AI. It's quite clever. It uses AI to figure out where you are. It's not so clever if you wear microphones on the head, because occasionally you seem to have things growing out of your head, but that's not important right now. And then once it's figured out where you are, it then calls some of these vector extension calls to blur everything else. And that's the way it works. So clearly, if your workstation isn't up to spec, you're not going to be able to do it. The good news is that most modern workstations have this, so it should be fine. Can Teams work offline? Audience participation invited? No, 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 it can't. Now, 2 years ago, Teams was dreadful on a low bandwidth connection. I give the development team a lot of credit for the work that they've done in the intervening period to make Teams a better network citizen. and to improve how responsive it is even on low bandwidth connections. I mean, I came across the Atlantic to the show, and you know, the Wi-Fi networks on airplanes across the Atlantic, how can I say, it's like watching treacle dry. It's really bad. But Teams was able to cope. But the point is, if you want to work offline, you need to have a couple of things going for you. You clearly need to have a cache, and Teams has a cache, but that cache is designed to handle intermittent outages where, you know, network drops, network's back again, network drops, network's back again. So it has enough caching to get through that kind of stuff. And they are working very, very hard to make it more sensitive to those kind of small, staccato-like network outages. But the other thing that you need to handle offline working is what Outlook has, an OST. And also what Outlook has, which was introduced in Outlook 2003, seems such a long, long time ago, all of the intelligence around a thing called drizzle mode synchronization, where you have background threads going all the time to synchronize all your folders. Now, Teams isn't at that stage yet. So it's still very much an application that likes to have a network, and likes to have a good network, and it would like very much if the IT administrators of the world would keep that network up and running. So that's your job. Does Teams audit what it does? Not well. Oh, not well. Oh, come on. Come on. That's tough. Yep, it does. I think it audits quite a lot. You know, it depends on the use that you make of the audit log. And I think one of the problems that people have with the audit log is that it likes to, if you look at the audit items themselves, it likes to hide away an incredible amount of data into this JSON formatted thing called an audit data structure. So if you look at it, if you just look at an audit log record, you say, wow, there's a lot of junk in here. But if you unpack that junk, and that's easy enough with PowerShell, you'll get a lot of information out there. But remember again that it's not just Teams, it's SharePoint, it's OneDrive, it's Planner. I mean, the amount of information about sharing is the thing that people get worried about all the time. The amount of information you can get out of the Office 365 audit log about who shares, do they share outside or inside, are the links used, et cetera, is phenomenal if you only go to look. And it's the same with Teams. If you go and look, you'll find lots of stuff there. Now what you do with it, that's up to you. And this is one of the big ones that people look for. Can I find out what guest users do? And it's absolutely there. Guest users, they're created with Azure B2B collaboration. Apps create them, Planner creates them, et cetera, for example. But all of that stuff, the guest access to documents, it's in the Office 365 audit log. And you can go and get it if you want to. Of course, you know, it does take extra processing, and people say, why do I have to do it? Microsoft, why can't you do that? Would that be a kind of a standard report? Yeah, well, life isn't perfect, you know, and this is one of the places where it isn't perfect, but you can do it. Okay, can I add photos? Absolutely, and you should. Because if you add photos for guest users, then people will see those photos in conversations, and they will be able to relate much better to those guest users. In fact, some folks go to the other extreme, and they say, instead of adding photos, I'll put this big warning sign that this is an external person. And you can do that, which is what I've got right there. At the bottom, you can see it there. There's a warning, this is an external person. But the way to do it, it's with Azure Active Directory. Just go to the Azure Active Directory portal. You can upload a photo there for a guest user. Or if you like PowerShell, you can run that set Azure AD user thumbnail photo. Okay. Getting very close to the end here. What's the equivalent of a reply all storm? You know that one? Big distribution goes out. Everybody says, get me off this distribution list. Right, a reply all storm. The equivalent in Teams, I think, is posting to multiple channels. So this is another opportunity for user education. You know, you've really got to tell people how to use this feature properly. You can post to up to 50 channels at one time. And the important thing to remember is that each one of those posts is dealt with as an individual thread. It's an individual message. It stands on its own right. And there's no way to say, bring all the replies from all 50 channels back together and show me a collective view. That doesn't happen. Okay? So this is one of those new features we're still getting to grips with. And that's why I bring it to your attention. So I think this is the last one. What's a segment? Piece of a worm, right? It's a piece of a worm. No, it's a section of your user directory. That's used for information barriers, information barrier policies. Basically, it's to stop two parts of an organization talking to each other. And Teams uses it, Exchange uses it, and at this conference, Microsoft announced that OneDrive and SharePoint are going to use it as well. So you can define a segment, and once you have those segments defined, you put them together in policies, and basically says, you know, Department A can talk to Department B, but can't talk to Department C. And Teams will respect that all the way through. It won't allow people to violate connections when they're in a personal chat, within a meeting, within a channel, and so forth and so on. Okay, last one. Org-wide teams and new employees. Why would I say that? You know what an org-wide team is? It's a team where all of the valid user accounts join the membership, and the membership is maintained automatically. Well, the big problem is if you do have new employees and you add their accounts early, all of a sudden they'll pop up and people will see them. So the reason why I bring this up is that there have been some instances where people found out that somebody was leaving another company to come and join your company just purely and simply because their account showed up in Teams. The recommendation here is just think about how you provision new employee accounts and what they join. Teams won't take over from email anytime soon. I'm running a session on this tomorrow. I'm over time. So I'm just going to leave that there and move to the end. Summary. I enjoy that because there was a lot of stuff there. There was a lot of stuff there. Yeah? And this is what happens when we have new applications. We're just finding out all the bits and pieces about them. It's one of the joys of technology. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for... Oh, I know what it's like on a Thursday afternoon and the last full day of the conference, so thanks for coming. And please fill out your feedback and all will be well. And if anybody is looking for me, I'm going to a session. Hey, that's why you come to a conference, isn't it? To learn? Thank you.